a rainy spring, almost spring day here in March. I don't know if you can hear around me. I have shoved myself into the greenhouse that is quite crowded at the moment with all the pots I have to take outside. But this is such a welcome time that I've been waiting for months to get back outside, get back into the greenhouse, and start sharing my garden diaries and vlogs with you. The plan for today's video will be to try and start tidying up the greenhouse. That's priority number one right now. Since it's raining and March is typically a wild time for us here in Maine. You never know what you're going to get in terms of weather. So I think it's a good idea to take the pots outside. That way they can be a little bit more exposed, the pots, to the elements. I don't think I'll be able to save much of the soil because it's pretty dried up. It'll be good to get them out and get them cleaned and ready for some new exciting plants. Next on the agenda will be to start pre-sprouting some dahlias. I was lucky enough that some of my dahlias did survive being overwintered with some pine straw. So that's great. I also forgot that I had ordered some more dahlias last fall. So that's exciting. That was a great surprise. So I'll share those varieties with you. I've just started sowing some seeds very early. I know, I was so excited. Ideally, you should follow the guidelines on the seed packet, which is typically 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost. And I think right now, or when I started the seeds, some of them, it was 12 weeks. I justify that with being eager to just get my hands in some earth and in dirt. And then also our season is just so short here in Maine, our growing season, that sometimes I like to start things pretty early to give them a jump start in the garden. That way I can really see how robust they can get. I don't always get that when I start seeds as the recommended start date. So, you know, gardening is great where you can just wing it sometimes and see what happens. So, lastly, I think I'll show you some of the seeds that I'm starting this year as well. And then lastly, I am going to be working on developing my back garden area. I decided to expand my flower growing this year from just my 450 square foot raised garden bed to expanding into the backyard, and I'm going to take some measurements, see how many rows I can get and how big. Now, a caveat to that is I live on almost a little less than 1/4 of an acre, and that includes our house, that includes the driveway. However, it is big enough for me, and I think you can really squeeze more into an area than you think. Also, welcome back. Welcome back to the channel. I am coming back after a nice long winter break, so I feel pretty well rested, and I'm excited to get into the garden this year. I'm going to do things a little differently this year, whereas last year I let things just go wild, and if something sowed itself in an area, I just let it be. I realized that I do like to have quite a bit of structure to the garden space, and if I just let things go wild, it just, I don't know, to me it looked really messy. So this year we're doing things different. So some goals for this year in the garden. I'm actually going to be redoing my raised garden beds. If you've been with me for some time, you may remember how my raised beds are with the upside down posts. So those are gonna go. Some of them are bent. It's been a couple of years, so the garden space is due for a revamping. Some of my garden beds, the boards have rotted and fallen apart. Goodness, the weather. You hear that? The wind is whipping, y'all. So I'm gonna fit as much as I can into this video. But it's exciting because I have so much on my to-do list that I'm just gonna share with you as I go. I still have some pruning to do. I did get a jump start and I pruned back pretty much all of my hydrangeas and some roses. But I have some things that I do want to share in a future video about that. Today's video is more about starting the spring cleaning process and just getting started. All right, enough of my gabbing. Let's start moving some of these pots outside.
It's the same old story being told inside my head. I'm too shy to straighten up my bones and be a man. I gotta tear this wall apart to let you in. My friends say the time's running out, so take the chance. Make a move, 'cause the store won't stay open till the end. Won't you tear my world apart?
Wow. Okay. Wow, that was a little bit of a task. Some of them were pretty heavy. We got that project done, taking the pots out of the greenhouse, so now I have a little bit more space to move. I'm seeing some spider webs. I'm glad I'm wearing my hat right now. Also a bunch of leaves and debris that I will need to clean out, maybe tomorrow. But it feels good. It feels good to have this task done, taking those pots out so I can also do a count as to how many pots that I have to work with this growing season. I only had one terracotta pot that cracked. Typically I wrap my pots up in burlap and snug them in the greenhouse, but I didn't do that last year. And I'm kind of happy I didn't, because I only had one that cracked out of 14 terracotta pots, only one cracked. And I think I can still use it. So that's not bad. I would like to revamp this greenhouse a little bit more this year too. Try and dress it up a little bit more than I already have. And I was able to I also was able to save some basil seeds from last year. I took the seed heads off before I moved the plant outside so they didn't get wet. And it just, even the seed heads for basil just smells so good. So we're gonna grow that this year too. Now that this is done, I think it's a perfect time for me to do some measurements in the backyard, because I do have plans to expand my flower growing area. So we're gonna take a peek back outside, see what we're working with, and then I might try to draw up some rough sketches as to how I want the rows to look like and what I want to grow in those spaces, because I currently do have some seedlings started. I'm awaiting to start a few more, so So I'll share that once those start moving along and once I get a few more seeds. So we're just gonna play around and see what we can work with. So let's go. Okay. Let's brave some of the elements here. Woo. Get a tape measure and I'm gonna bring you to the backyard. This will do. This will be interesting. I just did a rough measurement, and the area really that I can work with is going to be about 30 feet wide, and I think I can get away with 12 feet long. So you'll see I did start a wall of arborvitae, which have grown so much. If you've followed me for a little while, you may remember they were just down to that first rung. So quite a lot of growth to me in about 3 years, which is very exciting. They were a great deal at Home Depot. I think I got them for about $10 a pop. So with that said, I want to extend this bed out about another foot and then have about a 3-foot grass walkway. So I'm looking to create a space that serves with both function and something that's visually appealing and comforting, I guess is the right word. Because I think if I just start tearing up and just rip up a whole chunk, sure, I can fit more in that space, but I want to be able to have more of a space I can also sit and enjoy. And also, because I'm not the only one who lives here, I need to keep some of the grass on the other half of the yard. So, creating a place that has a sitting area and also that's easy for me to harvest the flowers. So I've got a little bit of noodling to do and sketching to do for a design idea. So with that, I also plan on extending. I had started to make a bed back there. It needs a lot of work and revamping again because this back space hasn't been my focus since the beginning. I spent a lot of time focusing on the side garden, the side raised bed garden, as well as the front of the house with installing fences and creating annual beds there. However, this year I really am trying to focus on developing this back area to see how much I can actually grow on 1/4 of an acre in the city. And you're going to come along with me. It's going to be really fun. I'm sure even with me creating a design and putting it down, it might change next year. But we're just going to see what we can do this year with this space. So now that that's done and I've taken some measurements, I'm going to go inside, see if I can break out some watercolors and see what we can maybe play around with. And if you have any ideas, I would love to hear them. I'm always looking for feedback and input because maybe you have a similar space that you're working with and you have just a brilliant idea for a layout or maybe the size of the beds and the size of walking paths in between growing rows of flowers. It's going to be a fun year. I'm getting cold and it's quite rainy now, so let's go inside. I've just finished doing a rough sketch of my plan for the backyard. I went ahead and took a peek at some of the seeds I plan to grow this year. Now I do have more coming, but I decided to organize them by height because I envision when I am looking into this dedicated space that I am able to see all of the flowers. I don't want to impede a view of my flowers. So if I plant my tall sunflowers right next to my chamomile in a way where I'm blocking it from a certain view. Well, there's Pearl. So, all right, so I have finally finished doing my rough sketch of what I plan to do in the garden in the backyard. I decided to take a peek at some of the seeds that I'm growing or planning to grow, attempting to grow this year in the garden, and organize them by height. My goal is to try and appreciate the flowers from a couple of different views, and I am trying to be a planner. Now, this is just a guess because there are height ranges on your seed packets, but I think I've laid them out in a way where I can appreciate them from a number of views when I enter the garden. So this is not a complete list of all the seeds I plan to grow. I am planning to get just a few more. I don't know what they are yet because I am being gifted some seeds, so that's exciting. But at the moment, I have a number of seeds from Johnny Seeds and then Botanical Interests. So what I'm planning to grow this year is Crispidia, or drumstick flower, amaranth, red spike amaranth. I haven't grown that yet before. Zinnias, and they are the giant mix. Campanula, which is the champion rose, a marigold, giant yellow marigold to be exact, Cain's light bronze snapdragons, aster, Valkyrie. So, and then I have lupin, which I'm actually going to be growing outside near the roadway along the fence line as a perennial. So the goal with this year is to maximize the space in the backyard for growing cut flowers, but also not completely digging up all of my grass in the backyard. I still want to have a space where I can sit down, enjoy the view. I do like to have some areas of grass. I don't want to just go hog wild and rip up what we have. We've been working really hard to get the grass that we do have. So right now I've kind of mapped out a space that's about 16 feet wide by 12 feet long. I didn't make it as long as I had originally anticipated because I do want to allow for room for green walkways. So 3 foot at least green walking spaces on either side of this flower garden, cut flower garden. As well, I plan to expand upon some of the beds I already have started cutting out, and then I do have an idea to create another bed right off of our porch. So for the rough sketch, this is the gravel walkway that we laid last year, and the porch would be right here. So I'm hoping that maybe I could create at least a 5 foot wide bed here to plant more perennials. And then as you're walking back behind the house, there's the row of arbs. At least have this be a 4 foot grass pathway. And then this will be roughly 16 feet wide. The measurements don't completely add up, but it'll work itself out. So right now I'm guesstimating that I'll have 3-foot wide beds with about a foot walking path. I know ideally I would like to have 2 feet, but given the space that I have, I think 1 feet is going to be just fine, 1 foot. And back here, I had started working on a perennial bed, so I have my bleeding heart, peony, there's a few other like heucheras, coral bells back there, but that's all going to be worked out. And I plopped a little bench right here because I think that would just be so sweet. And I do have the plants laid out in height, so from shortest to tallest. That way, when I'm walking in from either side to the backyard, we go in order of height, so tallest in the back with the sunflowers, amaranth, and then we'll go to zinnia, cosmos, campanula, asters, some snapdragons, marigold, status, calendula, and then chamomile. That is not completely set in stone, so that could change, but that's just the idea that I have in my head at the moment. Let me get these ones. Thank you. So now that I have finished my rough sketch, I think what I'll do now is start to sign off. But before I do, I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this new growing year. I have a lot of fun things planned ahead for the year. Some might call it ambitious goals, and I would agree. I would totally agree. But in future videos, you're gonna see me pre-sprouting my dahlias, and I'll go over what I'm growing of the varieties that I have labeled. I'll go over my seedlings and how they're progressing. I'll also go over my goals for the year for the gardens. And lastly, you're gonna see me do my cleanup and work on some projects for spring. And this is all, I think, before Mother's Day. Now that I'm saying it out loud, that's a really ambitious goal because I have about 1,000 tulips that are growing in my raised garden beds, or actually probably 999 because I did see a squirrel had already eaten one. So, thank you. Thank you so much. And I wish you the most amazing week ahead. And if you have any questions, or if you just want to pop in and say hello, I would love that more than anything. Take care.